Billionaire's phone saves the day at 3 a.m. But who was that waitress? The shocking truth. The clock struck 3. A haunting stillness blanketed the city, thick and heavy like a shroud, when the scream shattered the silence. It pierced through the dark, sending chills racing down spines and hearts pounding harder than a drum. Lights flickered in the lavish penthouse suite of Dylan Sanders, the billionaire whose phone was rumored to hold secrets worth more than gold. Shimmering in the dim light, the device buzzed ominously on the chrome coffee table, drawing everyone's gaze like a moth to a flame. But why was it so important? Dylan's fingers trembled as he reached for it. Was it a call or a message? The mystery loomed larger as the swirling shadows danced against the walls. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance, drawing closer, drowning out the heartbeat of the room. Whispers filled the air, laced with confusion and fear. Who was that waitress? She slipped in and out of the night like a fleeting vibration, bringing secrets alongside her coffee orders. Just last week, she had been the life of the party, laughing with confidence, but tonight? Tonight, she stood frozen, her eyes wide, staring at something unseen. A darkness threaded through the room, tightening around their throats like a noose. Dylan's friends cast uneasy glances, their voices rising in pitch as they debated what was happening. They knew something was off, and the hairs on the back of their necks stood on end. The shadows seemed alive, spiraling with anticipation. Suddenly, the phone rang. The noise punched through the tension, dropping jaws and freezing breaths across the room. Dylan answered, panic evident in his voice. Hello? His expression twisted with confusion. What awaited him on the other line? Was it help or was it a warning? The world outside continued its chaotic dance, but everyone in the suite waited with bated breath, teetering on the edge of revelation and despair. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. In the silence that followed, Dylan's breath hitched. Shadows twisted and converged, drawing closer as the truth hovered just beyond the reach of their understanding. The room felt smaller, the air thicker, charged with secrets ready to explode. Suddenly, the waitress rushed forward, eyes desperate, as if she held the key to everything that had just unfolded. What did she know? The very question clawed at everyone's mind. But the answer was locked tight, buried beneath layers of fear. And as the clock ticked on, the truth lingered just out of grasp, teasing them with its dark allure. Would they uncover the mystery before it was too late, or would the secrets consume them all? The air crackled with tension as Dylan clutched the phone, the voice on the other end crackling through the line like a ghostly whisper. You need to listen carefully, it said, deep and urgent. Every word sliced through the stillness, the echoes vibrating in the hearts of those present. Dylan's grip tightened, his knuckles paling as his eyes darted around the room, searching for answers in the faces of his friends. What do you mean? Who is this? He stammered, heart racing. The waitress stood motionless, eyes locked on Dylan, her breath shallow and rapid. She seemed to sway with the intensity of the moment, as if pulled by an unseen force. It's not safe. They're coming for you, for the phone, the voice replied, cold and calculating. You have less time than you think. Another scream pierced the night air, more distant but no less frightening. Dylan's stomach twisted. What had he gotten himself into? Distracted by the fear in his chest, Dylan barely comprehended the sound of footsteps approaching the suite. Heavy thuds echoed down the marble hallway, growing louder, more ominous. His friends exchanged glances, mouths agape, the sinister realization settling in, they were not alone. Outside, the sirens continued their haunting wail, but the mayhem seemed to draw closer. Who are they? Dylan demanded, voice barely reflecting the panic building within. Just hang up, Dylan. We have to leave. one of his friends urged, glancing at the door anxiously, as if expecting someone or something to burst through at any moment. The waitress moved closer to Dylan, her onyx eyes fierce, shimmering with determination. Please, you don't know what you're dealing with. I saw things, dark things. You must trust me what I'm about to say. Her voice was barely above a whisper, but the urgency hung thick in the air like smoke. What did you see? Dylan breathed, his heart racing, torn between dread and keen interest. Trust me, she said, hands trembling. It's connected to the phone. You have to get rid of it now. Her words came in a rush, as if she feared every second might be their last. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed against the door, splintering the tension like a brittle glass shattering onto the floor. Dylan jumped, adrenaline coursing through his veins. What was happening? Who was behind that door? The time for answers was quickly running out. Rushing to the door, the group huddled together, exchanging terrified glances as they contemplated their choices. Fight or flight? The walls themselves seemed to lean in, trapping them within their panic. Dylan's phone buzzed once more, and every glance shifted back to it, a siren's song filled with dread. Open the door! A voice boomed from the hallway, authoritative yet cold, sending shivers down their spines. Dylan's heart raced a million beats a second. Who were they? What did they want? Now! The voice roared again, demanding, unsettling. Time stood still as Dylan glanced back at the waitress. Was she telling the truth? Did she know something worse was lurking in the shadows? Their breaths hung heavy in the air, fear seeping into their bones. Everything hinged on one decision: should they open the door, or protect the secrets within the phone at all costs? And just as the choice began to uncoil in his mind, Dylan's phone buzzed again, a chilling message flashing on the screen. He hesitated, his finger hovering over the device. Would it shed light on the chaos unfolding, or plunge them deeper into darkness? In that moment, their fate hung in balance, ready to tip at the will of an unseen force. Dylan's heart hammered in his chest as he felt the oppressive weight of uncertainty pressing down on him. He glanced at his friend's fear reflected in their wide eyes, their bodies tense like coiled springs. The waitress stood just a few feet away, almost forgotten, but something about her presence urged him to trust her. Dylan, make a choice. One of his friends whispered sharply, breaking through the noise in his head. He swallowed hard, his throat dry. The booming voice from the hallway rang in his ears like a countdown. There was no more time to hesitate. Before he knew it, his fingers were flying over the screen. The notification read, "Get out now. They know where you are." What does it mean? He asked, eyes darting to the waitress, who shook her head gravely. Everything, she said, her voice tremulous yet determined. They're coming for the truth hidden in that phone, and when they find it, they won't stop until everyone who knows is silenced. The next bang on the door was louder, more violent. Dylan's nerves crackled with panic, but there was also an ember of bravery igniting within him. He needed to protect his friends. What do we do? He insisted, already regretting the question. The waitress stepped forward, eyes fierce. We need to destroy the phone. It's the only way. Destroy it? Dylan's stomach dropped. Every instinct urged him to cling to it, to understand what secrets it held. But deep down, he felt the heavy gravity of her words. Another series of loud thuds splintering his thoughts. The doorframe shuddered, and Dylan shot another glance toward the hallway, counting down the remaining seconds with each thunderous impact. Do it! His friend yelled, eyes wide with urgency. Now! With trembling hands, Dylan lifted the phone to chest level. The glowing screen illuminated his terrified face, the weight of the decision crashing down on him like an avalanche. Just as he was about to smash it against the floor, a new message pinged through a video thumbnail, titled "Watch This." He hesitated, and in that split second, light flickered through the doorway, illuminating menacing silhouettes on the other side. A silhouette that seemed to loom larger than the rest. The atmosphere thickened, raw fear radiating through the room. Watch it! The waitress urged, gripping Dylan's arm tightly. He pressed the play button, heart racing as the video flickered to life. The scene unveiled a chaotic event, a group of strangers just like him, eyes wide with fear, trapped in a nightmarish scenario. But then the blurry faces sharpened, and Dylan felt the breath leave his lungs entirely. Was that his friend, or something worse? The silhouettes at the door shifted, and Dylan felt a chill as the knock echoed again, this time splintering the wood. The shadows loomed larger, and muffled voices swirled around them like a tempest. "What is happening?" one of his friends squeaked, eyes darting around the room as panic surged. "Get ready to run!" Dylan shouted, adrenaline skyrocketing. "We can't let them get in." Behind him, the video played on, and realization hit Dylan with the force of a freight train. He wasn't just being chased. This was something much bigger in operation, an intricate conspiracy fueled by the depths of greed and malice. He had to figure out exactly what they wanted, not just for himself but for the friends he could lose. With a surge of desperation, Dylan turned to the waitress. "How do we stop this?" Before she could respond, there was a deafening crash, and the doors shattered inward, revealing a group of dark figures silhouetted against the corridor lights. The waitress screamed as the room plunged into chaos. Dylan's world tilted, fear wrapped around him tighter than a noose. All he could think was, how had it come to this? And in that moment of terror, a thought struck him: what if everything was connected? What if, hidden within this madness, lay his way out? As arms reached toward him through the gloom, Dylan prepared to confront the truth veiled in darkness, determined to protect those he loved. Was he ready to discover the sinister connections that tied them all to this nightmare? The room erupted in chaotic screams as the door smashed open, the sound reverberating like a gunshot. Dylan's heart raced, and time warped around him, stretching seconds into eons as shadows poured in. He barely registered the figures that stormed the room, their faces obscured by the deep hoods and dark clothing that screamed menace. "Run!" he shouted, instinct taking over. His friends, wide-eyed and trembling, scrambled to their feet, moving as one panic-fueled unit toward the back exit, but Dylan hesitated, the phone still clutched tightly in his hand. The waitress, her face pale but resolute, shouted, "We have to stick together. Let us head to the kitchen." Over the rising tide of fear, Dylan could hear the intruders' low voices, cold and calculating as they prowled through the debris, searching. "You want to get away?" one snarled. "We know what you're hiding." The weight of the phone weighed heavy in his pocket, an anchor dragging him back to the truth he needed to uncover. What lay hidden in its depths? Before he could think further, an arm lunged toward him, cold fingers grazed his shoulder, and instinct kicked in. He slipped away, darting toward the kitchen entrance, adrenaline spurring his legs to move faster than he ever thought possible. They burst through the kitchen door, and the smell of grease and the clatter of pans filled the air. Dylan's breath was shallow and ragged. He could hear his friends talking in frantic whispers behind him. The waitress stood a few feet away, gaze darting toward the exits. "There's a back door. We can escape through there," she urged. Dylan nodded, but guilt gnawed at him. "I can't just leave the phone. I need to know what's on it." "Are you insane?" one friend blurted, panic lining his voice. "They'll catch us. We need to go. What if that video has our only way out?" Dylan countered, conflicted. He raised the phone again, ready to unlock it. It buzzed in his hand, a new notification lighting up the screen, another video. His heartbeat thundered in his ears. What did they want from him? "Dylan!" the waitress snapped, snapping him back to reality. "We don't have time." As if to punctuate her words, the intruders slammed through the kitchen door, shadowy figures creeping closer, intent on finding their prey. Dylan's body froze at the sight of their gleaming weapons, and he felt the chilling grip of terror wrap around him. "Now!" he finally yelled, shoving the phone into his friend's hands. "Take this and go. Get to the car." "What about you?" his friend shouted back, eyes wide as panic shot through the group again. "I'll hold them off. Just go." Feeling resolve surge, Dylan turned, his heart a confined drum, pounding loud enough to drown out the chaos surrounding him. But before he could face the incoming danger, the sound of the waitress's voice sliced through the madness. Dylan, we need to work together. You can't do this alone. He hesitated. Could he trust her? Would she truly stand by him? Trust me, she insisted, and something in her determined gaze resonated deep within him, a flicker of hope amid the dread. In that moment, Dylan chose to believe. Okay, he said, drawing in a shaky breath. Together, then. Just as they formed a united front, the shadows advanced, flickering against the kitchen's fluorescent lights. The air thickened with tension, electric and heavy. Dylan couldn't shake the nagging feeling that this wasn't just about survival anymore. This was about uncovering the truth. With the phone still in play, the stakes were higher than ever. Dylan wasn't just running for his life, he was standing at the precipice of revelation. What do we do now? He asked, face set with determination. The waitress moved closer, drawing out a hidden knife from her waistband. We fight back. We take control of our fate. In that instant, Dylan felt the power of choice fuel his courage, a burning fire within that dismissed doubt. They would face whatever nightmare was waiting, and they would find answers. As the first figure lunged forward, Dylan braced himself, knowing that to uncover everything they would have to unleash a storm. What secrets lay buried beneath the chaos? And at what cost would the truth finally emerge? Dylan's pulse raced as he locked eyes with the advancing figure. It wore a mask that blocked its identity, but the glint of metal in its hand was clear enough. The weapon was menacing. Dylan gripped the edge of the kitchen counter, centering himself. Behind him, the waitress stood steadfast, her knife held low but ready. Remember what I said about sticking together, she urged, her voice steady despite the impending danger. Before Dylan could respond, shadows lunged from the doorway, and all hell broke loose. Dylan ducked just in time, feeling the rush of air as a taser dart whizzed past him. Adrenaline surged. We need to get to that back door now, he shouted, his voice raw. The waitress nodded, her eyes fierce and wild, and together they sprung into action. They darted toward the rear of the kitchen, where past stacked crates and crates of old cans lay a door that promised escape. Dylan glanced back, seeing a second intruder follow, weapon drawn, face twisted into a snarl. Keep moving, she yelled, lunging forward and slicing through the air with her knife. The blade nicked the assailant's arm, causing him to stumble back, cursing. Dylan felt a wave of relief wash over him. They could really do this. Just a little farther, and they might taste freedom. But as they reached the door, a loud crash echoed behind them, sending knives of panic through Dylan's chest. It's now or never, he said, slamming his palm against the handle. The door flew open, revealing a narrow alley cloaked in darkness, and they sprinted out into the cold, harsh air. As they stumbled into the street, Dylan felt the weight of the phone in his pocket. The truth was still there, lurking beneath the surface, a heartbeat he couldn't ignore. Where do we go? The waitress surveyed their surroundings, her breath billowing in the frigid night. Anywhere but here, Dylan replied, a surge of bravado coursing through him. He knew they had to find a place to regroup, to catch their breath. Over there. She pointed toward a dimly lit diner down the block. The flicker of neon drew them in like moths to a flame. They slipped inside, the door swinging shut behind them, sealing them away from the horrors outside. Inside, the atmosphere shifted from frantic to oddly still, as if the diner itself was unaware of the storm that was brewing just beyond its walls. They rushed to a booth in the corner, barely noticing the old couple sharing walls of silence nearby, the waitress at the counter glancing their way, curiosity dancing in her eyes. Get the phone, she ordered, her tone urgent. Without hesitation, Dylan fished it out and unlocked it, scrolling through the notifications, his heart pounding with each swipe. Another video awaited him, this time titled The Truth. What's on there? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper, both knowing that whatever was contained could change everything. I don't know, but we have to find out, Dylan said, anxiety morphing into determination. He pressed play, the screen igniting with flickering images, a blurred figure talking quickly, a face turning into a shadow. They were snippets of a conversation he couldn't yet fully grasp, but he felt the weight of their significance. Suddenly, the door burst open again. Dylan's heart sank as new figures flooded into the diner, their menacing presence wrapping around the warmth of the place like a suffocating blanket. "Get down!" the waitress shouted, pushing Dylan to the floor as they dove beneath the table, chaos erupting. He could see the glint of weapons in the dim light, and his gut twisted. What was happening? Who were these people? And why were they bent on capturing him? The video played on, casting pale light onto his face, unveiling secrets that could rewrite everything he knew. Dylan held his breath, aware that this moment would test the very fabric of their lives. "What's the plan?" the waitress hissed, her eyes darting from the legs of the intruders to Dylan's tense face. "We find a way out," he responded, and with that, a sudden clarity clicked in his mind. But as their dilemma loomed larger, there was still one question that loomed over them like an ominous storm cloud. Who had set all of this into motion? As the intruders searched the diner, the answer wound itself deeper into the shadows, waiting to be uncovered. Dylan held his breath, the intensity of the moment wrapping around him like a vice. The shadows of the intruders moved with precision, their heavy boots thudding against the diner floor as they fanned out, checking every corner. Bright lights flickered above, amplifying the tension. "What do we do?" The waitress gripped his forearm, her expression a mixture of fear and fierce determination. Dylan squeezed her hand back, trying to reassure her even as panic twisted inside him. "Keep quiet," he said, scanning the chaos above. He could see one of the intruders at the counter, looming over the waitress there. The old couple in the corner had clamped up, their eyes wide and afraid, silently observing the terror unfold. The video still played softly beneath their table, illuminating Dylan's face with an eerie glow. A voice echoed in his mind, details were slipping through his fingers like sand. "We need to see this through. We can't let them find us," he murmured, adrenaline fueling a sense of purpose. "I can't believe this is happening," the waitress whispered. "Who the hell are they?" "I don't know, but I think they're looking for me." Dylan's heart stuttered at the thought. The truth he uncovered was now dragging them both into a nightmare. Above them, one of the intruders barked an order, and Dylan's stomach dropped. "Search everywhere," he commanded, desperation dripping from his voice. The diner's patrons shrank further into their seats. If they discovered Dylan's phone, all would be lost. It was a ticking time bomb against mounting threats. Dylan leaned closer to the waitress, his breath trembling against her ear. "When they're distracted, we make a break for the kitchen again," he suggested, already plotting their escape. She nodded, and her determination fueled Dylan's resolve. As the intruders bent low, searching under tables, Dylan stole a glance outside. The chaotic nightlife continued around them, oblivious to the peril inside, a jarring contrast that left Dylan feeling isolated in a bubble of terror. Then the voice from the video reached a key point, drawing Dylan's attention. "Must secure the device. It has the information they need." A flash of familiarity hit him. Who was the blurred figure speaking? At what cost was this information going to be revealed? Just then, an intruder stood above their table, dark eyes scanning the space. Dylan clenched the phone, ready to protect it, when suddenly the fire alarm blared, cutting through the tension like a knife. In the instant of confusion, the waitress took advantage and whispered fiercely, "Now!" With a quick motion, she crawled out from under the table, and Dylan followed, his heart hammering. He peeked over the edge just in time to see the intruder turning, startled by the noise. They bolted towards the kitchen, adrenaline pushing them forward, the shrill alarm drowning out their footsteps. Dylan dared not look back, but the chaos sounded closer, footsteps storming after them, the rhythm of danger echoing in his ears. They dove into the kitchen, the heavy doors swinging shut behind them, but the alarm-esque shriek painted dread on their faces. "What now?" the waitress gasped, glancing around frantically. Dylan spotted a narrow path leading outside. "This way," he gestured, fear sparking more than a sense of direction. The door led to the back alley, the only semblance of freedom they had left. As they burst into the alley, the cool night air hit Dylan like a slap, the adrenaline shift brimming with urgency. But a new sound cut through the air, a low hum. Their surroundings began to illuminate, with multiple flashlights breaking through the darkness ahead. "Are they just waiting for us?" Dylan dropped his voice to a nervous whisper. They know, we have to keep moving. But just then, from ahead, a car door slammed, and a voice called out, "There they are! Get them! Now!" Dylan's heartbeat surged as they ran farther. Who was chasing them now? Were they the ones who sought to capture him? With each step, dread coiled in Dylan's chest, heavier than before. The video still loomed in his mind, its revelations yet to surface. What secrets lay beneath the surface, waiting to ensnare them further in danger? As they sprinted into the night, Dylan understood one truth: they were no longer just victims in a game. They were players on a desperate board. And as long as the phone remained with him, the truth was within reach. But what if that truth was far more devastating than he could ever imagine? The alley was dark, a sliver of moonlight barely illuminating the path ahead. Dylan could hear the sharp pound of his heart in his ears, pulsing with the thrill of fear. They had to keep moving. There was no time for hesitation. He glanced at the waitress, her face a mask of determination despite the terror flickering in her eyes. The glow of flashlights danced closer, and the distant yell of their pursuers grew louder. "Down here," Dylan urged, veering into a side passage that led deeper into the labyrinth of the city's backstreets. With every step, he felt the weight of the phone in his pocket, its dark power both a comfort and a threat. The sound of boots echoed like a thunderstorm behind them. "They're gaining on us," she panted, her breath freezing in the cold night air. Dylan shot her a glance, measuring her resolve. "Stay close," he hissed as they entered a narrow gap between two buildings. The alley was tight, shadowed on both sides, concealing them for just a moment. He pressed himself against the wall, his thoughts racing. "We need to find a way out of this." Suddenly, the ground shook beneath them as the intruders burst into the alley, their commands barking like hounds on a hunt. Dylan and the waitress held their breath, every ounce of his being attuned to the sound of crunching footsteps. Sweat beaded on his brow, and he fought the urge to look, to know what was happening just feet away. "We need to distract them," he whispered, an idea striking him like lightning. "Do you see that dumpster?" He nodded toward the large metal container tipped over at the end of the alley. "What are you thinking?" she replied, eyes wide. "I'll make a noise, get their attention. You go the other way and find a place to hide somewhere they won't see you." "No way. I'm not leaving you. Listen." Dylan grasped her shoulders, grounding them both. "If they keep hunting us, we're done for. Just trust me. I'll find you. I promise." There was a stubbornness in her eyes, but Dylan could see the truth of his words sinking in. "Fine, but be careful," she said reluctantly, joining him behind the dumpster. He took a deep breath, squaring his shoulders as he prepared to play his dangerous gambit. With every ounce of grit he had, Dylan picked up a small rock hidden among the refuse. He hurled it against the wall at the far end of the alley, the noise echoing like a gunshot, followed by blinding silence. For a brief moment, time paused. "Did you hear that?" one of the intruders called out, a note of uncertainty edging into his voice. "Go check it out," another ordered. With their focus diverted, Dylan nodded sharply at the waitress, who slipped away into the shadows like a wraith. Seconds felt like hours. Dylan pressed himself against the wall, every muscle tense, ready to bolt. As he heard them start toward the sound, he made a break for it, darting further down the alley away from the noise. Just then, he noticed the stinging sensation in his pocket where the phone had been. Something shifted inside. The weight felt wrong. He stopped, fumbling to pull it out. His heart sank as he noticed the screen cracked, the device's glow flickering erratically. The encrypted file was in there, everything that could save or doom them both. Moving into a bit of moonlit space, he glanced around, scanning for any sign of the waitress. "Where are you?" he whispered, panic flooding his chest. There was no time, he had to think. But just then, Dylan heard a rustle behind him and whipped around. His breath hitched. "Let us find out what they're hiding." A man with a threatening grin stood blocking his only escape, flanked by two more of the intruders. Dylan's pulse quickened as he realized just how trapped he was. "We've got you now," the man sneered, stepping forward. "Nothing you do will stop what's coming." Hand over the phone. Dylan's resolve hardened. As the shadows closed around him, he felt the stakes rise higher than ever. The device wasn't just a phone anymore, it was a whole new world ready to explode. But the question loomed: what would happen when the truth surfaced? Would he be ready for the answer? Dylan's heart raced as the men closed in. The alley felt tighter, more constricting, as if the walls themselves were inching in to squeeze him. His eyes darted around, hungry for an escape route. But the narrow passage seemed to disappear into the darkness around him, while the intruders advanced. "Hand it over or we'll make this painful," the lead man growled, cracking his knuckles menacingly. The scent of sweat and something metallic drifted between them, thickening the air with tension. Dylan's brain was firing on all cylinders. He gripped the cracked phone tightly, its plastic warm against his palm. He wasn't going down without a fight. "Why do you want it so bad?" Dylan shot back, the bravado in his voice a thin veil over his fear. "It's just a phone." The man's grin faded slightly, replaced by an unnerving seriousness. "You have no idea what you're holding," he hissed. The other two men stepped closer, their anticipation gleaming in their eyes like predatory beasts. Dylan felt trapped in a nightmare. He had to act now, had to buy time. "Look, why throw away a chance to work together?" he suggested, his voice steady despite the shouts of his heart. "What if we both can get something from this? Let's talk." The leader laughed, a rough sound that grated on his nerves. "Talk? You think you have something we want? We already have everything planned." Dylan's mind raced. What could they possibly know about him? At that moment, the grin returned to the man's face. "We know all about your little secrets, Dylan. And we know that phone holds something you don't even understand yet. Give it to us and we might let you leave here alive." Panic clawed at Dylan's throat. The truth was clearer now. It wasn't just a phone, it was a target. With swift reasoning, he slipped it into his back pocket, hiding it. His heart kicked into high gear. He needed a distraction, a chance to escape. Without thinking, Dylan shoved his weight forward, pushing the lead man back just as he lunged. "No!" he shouted, his mind on the waitress. Where was she? Had she found safety, or was she still trapped out there, alone? The maneuver caught them off guard. Dylan darted to the side, his feet pounding against the gritty pavement as he sprinted down the alley. But there was nowhere left to run. The path split ahead into two options. Left led to the open street, where they would be exposed, while right disappeared into yet another darkened space. He could hear their shouts behind him. "Get him! Don't let him escape!" The urgency in their voices fueled his desperation, driving him into the darkness of the right passage. Dylan barreled forward, the sound of boots echoing behind him like thunder, a storm he desperately sought to evade. As he ran, he spotted a wooden door slightly ajar in the gloom. It was a last hope. He forced it open and slipped inside, the heavy thud of the door muffled in the dim room. He took a moment to collect himself, his lungs burning, heart racing. The air inside smelled stale, with only a faint glimmer of light filtering through a grime-covered window. As his eyes adjusted, he scanned the surroundings, panting. Old crates piled high, dust hanging thick in the air. A perfect hiding spot. Suddenly, the door rattled violently. "I know you're in there. This is your last chance," the lead man shouted, anger sparking in his voice. Dylan's hands shook as he felt the phone vibrate violently in his back pocket, as if it had awakened. The men outside were closing in. Dylan glanced around the room, debating whether he could sneak out the door or whether it was time to make a stand. Just as his mind raced with how to beat the odds, he heard a sound that froze him in his tracks, the unmistakable snap of a branch outside. "Did you hear that?" one of the intruders whispered, suddenly tense. "Something's out there." Dylan's heartbeat synchronized with the rising tension. Was it an ally or another threat lurking beyond? He could feel the air thickening with uncertainty, his adrenaline surging as he prepared for whatever fate awaited him. The memory of the waitress resurfaced in his mind. Had she escaped? Or was she also in the clutches of these men? What truth lay in the secrets he held? The question loomed, more pressing than ever. Could he trust anyone in this dark game, or was he alone fighting a battle against shadows? The door rattled again, accompanied by a hard, violent thud that made the whole frame shake. Dylan pressed himself against the wall, the pulse in his ears thundering louder than his own racing heart. Shadows danced around the room, and he could almost hear the men's breaths, heavy, labored, and full of menace outside. The phone in his pocket pulsed again, and it felt like a living thing, urging him to act. "Last chance, Dylan?" the lead man bellowed, his voice reverberating like a death knell. "You don't want to find out what we'll do if you make us come in there." Dylan closed his eyes, and for a heartbeat, his thoughts exploded into chaos. The weight of the phone pressed down on him. What terrible truths were wrapped in its circuitry? But in that moment, it didn't matter. He needed to survive. The sound of a rustling came from outside, followed by a sharp cry. Dylan's heart skipped. Was it the waitress? Had she come looking for him? Or had she fallen into the hands of these men? Time was slipping away. Every second felt like an eternity, and Dylan could see the way the door quaked under the relentless assault of the men outside. He pushed away from the wall and moved toward a stack of crates. They were tattered and seemed unstable, but he needed to create a barricade. As he shoved the crate into place, he caught a glimpse through the grime-covered window. Outside, the street light flickered ominously, casting long shadows that seemed to stretch towards him. It was dangerous, but he had to see what was happening. He peered through the glass. He squinted hard, straining to catch any sign of movement amidst the gloom, and there she was. The waitress was stumbling into the flickering light, her expression panic-stricken, eyes darting around as if she could sense the danger looming in the alley. The sight sent a surge of hope through Dylan's veins, but it quickly turned to horror as the men burst through the door. They crashed inside, and Dylan ducked, heart pounding in his throat. Their angry voices filled the room, mingling with the metallic tang of fear that hung heavy in the air. "Where is he?" the leader shouted, venom dripping from each word. Just then, Dylan spotted the phone shimmering again, a bright glow pulsating steadily. It was like a beacon in the dark, illuminating everything within its reach. The men had stopped mid-motion, their eyes narrowing at the glow. Dylan's instinct kicked and he had no choice but to show them what it hid. He flung the door open, catching them off guard, and waved the phone in front of their eyes. "This? You want it so bad?" he shouted, adrenaline giving him strength. "Then come and get it." He bolted back outside, running towards the lane where the waitress had emerged, hoping beyond hope she wasn't far away. The men surged after him, furious roars echoing down the alley. Dylan didn't look back. He could hear them crashing through crates, shouting obscenities, all while the phone vibrated with urgency in his hand. Just as he reached the street, he caught the waitress's terrified gaze. Without thinking, he reached out towards her, a lifeline in the chaos. "This way!" he yelled, just as two figures from behind rushed forward. He could feel their pulsating anger, like a wave threatening to pull him under. Dylan's desperate grasp tightened as he pulled her closer. For a moment, the world shrank around them, the noise fading as they locked eyes, something unspoken passing between them. Then the ground shook beneath them, a roaring sound echoing in the distance. Dylan couldn't tell if it was them or something worse. But he knew one thing: they were out of time. With renewed urgency, Dylan dragged her along, still clutching the phone that seemed to hold the promise of survival or doom. The night stretched ahead, dark as sin, filled with secrets and danger. "Who are they?" she gasped, stumbling but keeping pace. "What do they want?" He didn't have an answer, but he felt the weight of truth bearing down upon him. "What matters is that we keep running," Dylan said. "We have no idea what's coming." As they turned a corner, the sounds of pursuit faded for just a moment. Dylan dared to hope they might be safe. But he couldn't shake the feeling that the real danger was only just beginning, hidden in the dark corners of the unknown. Dylan gasped for breath, his legs pounding against the pavement as he and the waitress sprinted deeper into the heart of the city. The sounds of pursuit echoed behind them, heavy footsteps and angry shouts filled the air, pushing them forward like a dark tide. Every pulse of fear welled in Dylan's chest, but he refused to look back. The shadows were closing in. "Dylan!" the waitress called, her voice strained. "We can't keep this up forever. Where are we going?" He cast a darting glance around. Bright lights of the city glimmered like diamonds, promising safety, but danger lurked just on their heels. "There! The station!" he shouted, spotting the glowing sign of a nearby subway entrance. It was their only hope. As they approached, Dylan had a fleeting thought: what about the phone? But as he felt its weight in his pocket, he knew he couldn't let it go. Not now. Not ever. They thundered down the stairs into the station, the world above them dimming as they plunged into darkness. The familiarity of trains and metal grates felt like a sanctuary, but their breaths echoed loudly, reminding them of the chaos they were escaping. "Which way?" she gasped, scanning the empty platform. "Any train will do," Dylan said, urgency tightening his voice. The faint sound of footsteps fading above gave them a flicker of relief, but it wouldn't be long until their pursuers caught their scent. Suddenly, a roar of headlights enveloped them, the sound of a train approaching. Dylan sprinted forward, dragging the waitress beside him. Just as they reached the platform, the doors slid open, swallowing them into the dim-lit cabin. A few startled passengers glanced up, but chaos reigned too loudly for them to register the panic etched on Dylan's face. As the train pulled away from the station, he caught his breath for a moment. But time was still ticking, and the truth remained locked behind the cracked screen of his phone. He turned to the waitress, horror flashing across his features. "We need to watch that video. It's still going to reveal answers." "Dylan, we can't right now. We need to hide. We need to make a plan," she insisted, her eyes wide, scanning the car for threats. "No! They'll find us without knowing what we're dealing with," Dylan argued. He pulled out the phone, hands shaking as he navigated to the video titled "The Truth." Their surroundings faded as he pressed play, the flickering images illuminating their frightened faces. The footage rolled, revealing a darker plot than Dylan could have imagined: a web of manipulation and deceit, powerful forces that wanted the information stored within his phone. "We were never just targets," he breathed, eyes glued to the screen. "We're part of something bigger." Fury built within him as the video relayed the chilling words of conspirators. "Eliminate anyone who knows," they said, plotting against innocent lives. His pulse raced, mounting at the implication of what those men had intended for him, and the waitress beside him. A chill ran down her spine as she grasped his arm. "We have to find a way to expose this. They can't keep getting away with it." With each second that passed, a plan unfurled in Dylan's mind. They could go to the police or any media outlet. They could unveil it all. "Let us get off at the next stop and find a phone," Dylan said, determination flooding his veins. "We can't let this nightmare take over. We need to bring the truth to light." The train jolted to a stop. They grabbed the last moments, rushing out onto the platform that was now their battleground. Dylan could feel the weight of the phone in his pocket, the burden of knowledge and responsibility intermingling with hope. As they ascended to the street, Dylan swept his gaze around. They could not let their guard down. But the street was peaceful for a moment, and Dylan's heart raced at the realization he still had a chance to survive, to make a difference. "Ready?" he asked the waitress, her face steady and fierce. "Always," she replied, and together they took their first step onto the street, breathless with determination and fear. The nightmare was not over, but they wouldn't face it alone. Dylan's phone pulsed softly, a reminder of the truths that could change their lives forever. Silence had fallen, but the fight had only just begun. As they moved forward, their resolve steadied. Even in the darkest moments, they would face whatever threats lay ahead. Together, they formed an alliance not just to protect themselves but to unleash the truth that would shatter the silence and expose the chaos hidden from the world. It was time to fight back. And as they blended into the pulse of the city, they knew this wasn't just about survival anymore. This was their moment. Dylan and the waitress, two unlikely heroes fighting for justice against a tide of malevolence that sought to swallow them whole. And the truth, as elusive as it was about to be set free. Now, as we wrap up this thrilling story, I urge you to take action. You need to subscribe now to the channel so you don't miss the next explosive tales we have coming for you. Smash that like button to support this amazing community. You're a key player here. Let's flood the comments section with your reactions. Share your thoughts, theories, and any twists you saw coming. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this conclusion. Let us spread the word together. Your engagement matters. Show your support now.